Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can travel farther than we can ever imagine. It begins with a single drop, a ripple in the still water of someone's heart, spreading wider and wider until it touches lives we will never even know. This is a story about how one good deed, done without expectation, created a chain of hope that came full circle in the most beautiful way. It began on an ordinary evening, in a quiet neighborhood where life moved at its usual pace. The sun was setting, painting the sky with golden shades of peace. A young boy named Arham was walking home from the park, holding a small paper bag that carried his leftover sandwich. He was tired, his shoes covered in dust, but his heart was light. On the corner of the street, he saw an old man sitting beside a bench. The man's clothes were torn, his face weary from the kind of pain only time and struggle can right. Without thinking twice, Arham walked up, smiled, and handed him the sandwich. The man looked up, surprised, his eyes glistening with tears. "Why would you give this to me?" he asked. The boy simply replied, "Because I have enough." That small gesture might have seemed insignificant at that moment, but it began something bigger than either of them could see. The old man ate the sandwich slowly, each bite tasting like gratitude. For the first time in many days, he didn't feel invisible. That feeling, the warmth of being seen, being cared for, ignited something inside him. The next morning, when he found a few coins on the ground, instead of spending them on himself, he bought a flower and gave it to a lady who looked sad at the bus stop. She smiled, surprised and touched by the stranger's kindness. She held that flower close as she got on the bus, and for the rest of the day, she couldn't stop thinking about how a small act from someone she didn't know had lifted her mood so deeply. Later that day, that same lady worked at a small cafe. When a young waiter accidentally spilled coffee on her dress, she could have yelled or complained. But instead, she remembered the flower, took a deep breath, and said, "It's all right, don't worry." The waiter, expecting anger, froze for a second. No one had ever been that kind to him after making a mistake. Her gentle reaction stayed in his mind. That night, when he saw a stray puppy shivering in the rain, he didn't just walk away. He picked it up, wrapped it in his jacket, and took it home. Days went by, but the ripples of kindness kept spreading. The puppy, now healthy and happy, would greet everyone in the street with wagging tail and cheerful barks. Neighbors who used to pass each other in silence started smiling and talking again because of that dog. That little creature unknowingly built bridges between people who had forgotten how to connect. One afternoon, a man who lived nearby was walking to work, stressed and worried about his job. The dog ran to him, playfully jumping and licking his hand. The man laughed for the first time in weeks. That moment softened something in him. Later that evening, when he saw a teenage boy struggling to fix his bicycle, he stopped to help. The boy thanked him with shining eyes, feeling seen and supported. He had been losing faith in people, but that simple act reminded him that goodness still exists. That boy later grew up to become a teacher. In his classroom, he didn't just teach lessons from books, he taught lessons from the heart. Every time a student felt left behind, he would remind them that they were capable, that a kind word could change someone's entire day. He didn't know it, but his compassion came from that long ago moment when someone had helped him with his broken bicycle. Years passed. The boy, now a man, continued to plant seeds of kindness wherever he went. And the ripples kept expanding, touching lives he would never meet. One of his students, inspired by his kindness, started volunteering at an orphanage. There, she met children who had forgotten what love felt like. She played with them, read stories, and made them laugh again. Among those children was a little boy with bright eyes who had been abandoned by his family. For the first time in his short life, he felt safe and loved. That boy grew up carrying the warmth he received in his heart. When he became older, he started helping others who were lost or alone. One evening, while volunteering at a shelter, he met an old man who looked tired and hungry. The man's eyes carried years of sorrow, but there was something familiar in his face. Without hesitation, the young man gave him his meal and sat beside him, listening to his story. The old man told him about the ups and downs of his life, the mistakes, the loneliness, and how once, many years ago, a small boy had shared his sandwich with him when he had nothing. The young man smiled quietly. Though he didn't know it, that same act of kindness had come full circle. The ripples had returned to where they began. The boy who once gave a sandwich had unknowingly saved the same soul who, through a chain of small good deeds, had touched countless lives, including the life of the boy's own generation. That is the power of a good deed. It never truly ends. It travels unseen, from heart to heart, sometimes across years, sometimes across worlds. Kindness is never wasted. Every gentle word, every selfless act, every moment when we choose empathy over indifference, it all matters more than we can imagine. In a world that often feels harsh and divided, one act of goodness can remind someone that light still exists. The beauty of kindness is that it asks for nothing in return, yet it returns in ways that are beyond measure. The one who gives may forget, but the one who receives remembers for a lifetime. Sometimes people hesitate to help because they think their gesture is too small to make a difference. But history, and humanity, are shaped by small acts repeated millions of times. The world doesn't change because of one grand miracle, it changes because ordinary people choose to be kind in ordinary moments. Imagine if every person, every single day, did just one thing kind, held the door open, smiled at a stranger, shared food, forgave a mistake, said, "Thank you," or, "I believe in you." Those little ripples would merge into waves powerful enough to heal the world. The truth is, kindness doesn't need wealth, status, or fame. It only needs a willing heart. There is a deep, unspoken magic in doing good quietly. When we help without expecting reward, we set something sacred in motion. It could be a mother who works extra hours to feed her children, a student who stands up for a bullied classmate, or a stranger who comforts someone crying on a bench. These moments might never make the news, but they make the world a better place. Every soul you meet carries battles you cannot see. Sometimes your smile may be the only light they have that day. So give freely, speak kindly, listen deeply, because kindness costs nothing but changes everything. The power of a good deed lies not in its size, but in its sincerity. The heart that gives without counting, the hands that serve without pride, the person who chooses compassion even when it's inconvenient, those are the true heroes of our time. You never know who's watching you, who's learning from you, or who's being saved by you in ways you may never realize. Sometimes, the example you set by your kindness becomes the reason someone else believes in good again. Arham, the little boy who once shared his sandwich, grew up and never forgot that moment. He didn't realize then that his small act had changed the lives of hundreds through a chain of people he'd never meet. But he carried the lesson in his heart, that kindness, like a ripple, moves silently but powerfully. Years later, when Arham became a father, he told his own son the story of that evening. He said, "Son, never hold back from doing good. You never know how far your kindness can travel." And his son listened, and one day, he too helped someone in need. And the ripples began again. We often think our lives are too small to make a difference. But every time we choose kindness, we become part of a much bigger story, the story of humanity, love, and hope. A single act can outlive us, echoing in the hearts of others long after we're gone. The greatest gift we can give the world is not wealth, not success, not recognition, but kindness. Because when kindness becomes a habit, it transforms everything it touches. It bridges differences, heals wounds, and builds a future where compassion is stronger than hate. So, if you ever wonder whether your good deed matters, remember this story. Remember that a ripple can travel across oceans, that light can grow from a spark, and that one small act of goodness can change the course of countless lives. When you help someone today, even in the simplest way, you might be creating a future miracle. You might be saving someone from despair. You might be giving birth to another ripple that will keep moving, long after you are gone. Do good, not for recognition, not for applause, not because someone is watching, but because it's who you are. Because goodness is contagious, and every act of kindness is a seed of hope planted in the soil of humanity. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs kind ones. The power of a good deed lies in its quiet strength, in its silent courage to care, in its gentle defiance against a world that often forgets to love. So be the ripple, start the change, let your kindness flow, and trust that somewhere, somehow, it will come back to you, perhaps when you need it most. Because the universe always finds a way to return what we give, multiplied by love, wrapped in grace. That is the power of a good deed. That is the ripple that never ends.